The United States of America is under attack from the inside.
I believe in discrimination.
Behind the violence are organizations bent on reclaiming America for the white race.
I am the new wave of white racism in this country and around the world, and I'm very proud to be that.
On the internet and in factories and schoolyards, these groups are looking for new recruits. In a nation of freedoms, they test our limits. Hello, I'm Bill Curtis. They are the preachers of hate, and they make headlines when they unleash their vitriol. From white supremacists to skinheads to neo-Nazis, they're always lurking below the mainstream, ready to issue what they consider a wake-up call to anyone who will listen. And that call is always one filled with hate, and always directed at minorities. Tonight, in a unique edition of Investigative Reports, we meet the outspoken and brazen leaders of these hate groups and learn firsthand of their plans for recruiting our young people. We'll also meet those who are watching them and trying in a free society to put a stop to the hate network.
Say white power! White power! White power!
The United States of America is under attack. A war is being waged on the basic freedoms most Americans believe to be the foundation of our nation's strength.
Hatred is like a weapon against an opposition that you must neutralize.
The mud races are the non-white races. We call them mud races for two reasons. One, they are darker than we are, similar to mud. And second of all, they are lower than us on the evolutionary scale.
Constitutional rights guaranteed to every citizen are under fire by an alarmingly large number of groups and individuals spread out across the land. There are now in excess of 500 organized hate groups in America. They have names like White Aryan Resistance, National Alliance, World Church of the Creator, and Aryan Nations. They call themselves Skinheads.
No hair so they can't pull it when I'm fighting.
Neo-Nazis. And even patriots.
I don't care, I'll die for my race.
They commit acts of terrorism.
You coward!
They murder.
McVeigh!
And they poison the public dialogue with ignorance. Their one unifying doctrine, hatred and intolerance.
My name is Matt Hale. I am a reverend in the World Church of the Creator, an organization that is dedicated to the survival, expansion, and advancement of the white race and the white race alone. We are here in East Peoria, Illinois, our world headquarters. This is the main office of our organization, as small as it is.
The World Church of the Creator was founded in 1973 by Ben Klassen, inventor of the electric can opener. 2 years after Klassen died in 1993, then 23-year-old Matt Hale took the title Pontifex Maximus, or Supreme Leader, and relocated the headquarters to his hometown. Since then, the so-called church has seen a major resurgence.
The World Church of the Creator is the fastest growing pro-white organization in the world. We have members in, I believe, 22 countries. We have members throughout the United States, 20 states, actually. We are demographically across the board, but in particular the youth.
Matt Hale has a law degree from Southern Illinois University, although the state of Illinois has thus far denied him admittance to the bar because of his radical behavior.
In nature, you decide right and wrong by what is good for your own people, your own kind. No matter what form of life it is, that's the law.
For Matt Hale, hate and intolerance are a religion.
We don't believe in Jesus Christ. Our religion, creativity, is a better religion. And that if we wish to preserve our white race, we need to have a racial religion. Christianity doesn't address the racial issue, and that's a glaring weakness of it. How can white people embrace Christianity when Christianity seems to embrace all races?
Followers of creativity, 50,000 worldwide according to Hale, have elevated the tenets of racism to the sacred beliefs of a religion. They even have their own Bible.
The white man's Bible provides a religion for white people. Throughout the centuries, white people have been following a Jewish religion, namely Christianity, and this religion has not served our people well.
Just as racist is William Pierce's National Alliance, a hate organization the Anti-Defamation League considers America's most dangerous.
I'm William Pierce. I'm the chairman of the National Alliance, which is probably the foremost educational organization in America, which is concerned about race, concerned about the preservation of our civilization, and a number of other things which are generally considered politically incorrect.
Pierce, who has a PhD in physics, actively publicizes his convictions in his weekly radio program, magazines, and books, including the notorious Revolution Manual, the Turner Diaries.
I believe that white people ought to wash their own dishes, cook their own food, cut their own grass, carry out their own garbage, that they ought not to be dependent in any way upon members of other races. I think that's the only healthy kind of a society to have. And I want to see eventually a white world in which white people can live and grow and work by themselves.
Another organization, White Aryan Resistance, or WAR, is dedicated to educating and training individuals to become racist soldiers in the fight for white supremacy.
My name is Tom Metzger. I live in Fallbrook, California. Politically, I started as a conservative right-winger and ended up a radical racist revolutionary. A racist revolutionary is one who has given up on the old methods that are failed, the conservative right wing or even the so-called conservative or liberal left wing, and has decided that we need to employ different methods or we're not going to win.
Metzger, former Grand Dragon of the California Ku Klux Klan and 1980 Democratic candidate for Congress in San Diego, is now the head of WAR. Metzger is a man seemingly comfortable in the line of fire and completely unapologetic about his campaign of hate.
Mainstream America probably think I'm too radical. They probably think I'm a very violent person, possibly. They may think that you better watch that guy. You don't know what he might do. But they also would say he's very intelligent, and obviously he's not in federal prison, so he's done some things right.
Do leaders of hate groups pose a real threat to our nation? Mark Potok gathers intelligence on hate groups for the Southern Poverty Law Center in Montgomery, Alabama.
This is a movement whose aim isn't to beat up a few people and kill a few people. It's to make a revolution. This is a genuine political movement that is, has real goals.
U.S. Senator Charles Schumer of New York, a 22-year congressional veteran and a leading advocate of anti-hate legislation, has witnessed the rise of modern hate groups.
These people are deranged almost in their thinking, and they want to return to a law of the jungle, might makes right, where only they prevail.
Equally terrifying is the number of individuals belonging to racist organizations. According to anti-hate organizations, hate groups in the United States today have an estimated combined membership of over 200,000. This number is far less than 80 years ago. However, today's hate group membership consists of more dedicated and extreme individuals.
We're the Johnny Appleseed of the racist movement. My job, as I saw it, and so since I created it, I guess that's what it is planting the seeds. I started, in the racial thing in the early 70s, planting seeds. Now my seeds are adults, and they are family people, and they are in the corporations, they're in the banks, they're in the military, they're in the highest universities in this country. The uniform of today is your skin. The mode of transportation should be a Lincoln Town car. Armani suits, and a briefcase.
With the menace of communism a thing of the past, the extremists turned their attention closer to home and found a new scapegoat, the United States government.
We are resisting an evil empire that's not in Moscow anymore, it's at Washington, D.C.
Targeting affirmative action, government aid to third world countries, and immigration laws they believe are too lenient, racist groups claim white America is doomed, and they're ready to fight. Tom Metzger is ready to take on illegal immigrants at our southern border.
Give me a contract as a private businessman. I can get my friends in the Marines over here, even off duty. We'll do it very cheaply, and we'll solve the problem in less than 6 months. But give me a blank check. And don't whine if we get violent.
There's no doubt that everyone in any cause that's ever existed has contemplated violence. I mean, it's human nature to contemplate all possibilities. However, our church remains on its legal path because we can win that way. We plan on winning that way. At the same time, we made it very clear that if the federal government usurps the Constitution, if the Constitution is destroyed, if the First Amendment no longer exists for, quote, racists, unquote, then any means at our disposal are allowed.
They want to throw white children and colored children into the melting pot of integration, throughout of which will come a conglomerated, mulatto, mongrel class of people. Both races will be destroyed in such a movement.
Hate groups are not new to the United States. The Ku Klux Klan has been around since the Civil War.
The Klan back in the mid-1920s was a huge organization. There were about 5 million members. Today we're looking at 5, perhaps 6,000 members. And those members, unlike the 20s, are divided into about 50 different named organizations.
They are our comrades in the common goal. Now, in our view, wearing robes or sheets or costumes is counterproductive. Having titles such as Imperial Wizard and Grand Cyclops and things of this nature, they might have had a place at one time, but we don't feel they have a place today. It's like putting on a uniform of an officer in Napoleon's army and walking around and expecting people to find commonality with you or identity with you or identify with you. Most people will not do that.
In the past, hate groups flourished during periods of economic downturns, and that's changed.
The economy in the United States for most of the 1990s has had very low inflation, very low unemployment, and typically, in that situation, one expects hate groups and, kind of racial separatism in general to go down, as people get jobs and do well and have other concerns and aren't angry at the world.
What's really troubling about the rise of hate groups in the 90s has been it's a time of prosperity, when history at least shows during times of economic stagnation or decline is when hate groups flourish. So if and when that downturn occurs, I worry that the seeds that are planted by these groups in times of prosperity could start growing like topsoil.
Despite the general climate of wealth and financial stability, many members of hate groups are seeing no increase in their personal standard of living. They remain at the bottom of the wage scale. With many of the minorities, they fervently oppose.
You've got a lot of people out there, in the hinterlands of America, who not so many years ago might have been making $50,000 or $60,000 working, say, in a steel mill at a good union job, who today may be making $17,000 managing a fast food restaurant if they're working at all. So, there really is a kind of economic rage out there, and it's a rage that really has been tapped into and is being tapped into by white supremacist organizers.
They took our government, they transferred the title to the transnational corporations, and now they're having a garage sale and selling all our jobs overseas, shipping all the plants overseas. We've already been overthrown as a basically white nation. It's up to us to salvage what's left, get it back.
An extreme interpretation of Christianity provides spiritual and moral justification to a growing number of white supremacists and has them preparing for holy war.
Christian identity has really kind of become more and more the glue that sort of binds the whole radical right together. It's growing, and the danger of identity is that it's a theology that demands from its followers war, in effect. Its followers don't believe that Christ can return to earth until the globe is kind of swept clean of satanic influences. And, you know, in identity theology, that means kill the Jew, kill the race mixer, kill the abortionist, kill the homosexual, or else Christ cannot return to earth. So, you know, while certainly all identity believers, of which there are probably 50,000 in this country, aren't about to go out and kill someone, there are a number of people who do.
Echoing the darkest chapter in the history of the 20th century, today's hate groups have once again made Jews the scapegoat for all they feel is wrong with the world.
I'm not too happy with Jews, and I'm not happy with 2% of the population being 50% of the Washington, D.C. cadre.
The Jews have posited themselves as adversaries of our white people. Throughout the centuries, the Jews have been manipulators, connivers within white nations. They have sought to control the economies and governments of white people around the world.
I've talked often about the Jewish dominance of our mass media. I've named names. I've talked about Michael Eisner and his Disney, ABC empire. I've talked about Gerald Levin and his Time Warner, CNN empire. I've talked about Sumner Redstone and his Viacom, CBS empire.
There's another standard of hatred and intolerance that's been heard for years.
If we're not willing to protect our own women as white men, then we're not much of men. We need to protect white womanhood. We need to protect white children. We need to protect the family unit, our people.
Much of what hate groups believe can be summed up by what Matt Hale calls his church's golden rule.
What is good for the white race is the highest virtue, and what is bad for the white race is the ultimate sin. We believe this golden rule makes a lot more sense than this do unto others business that really isn't practical, is not feasible, and is hardly ever practiced by anyone for that matter. Our golden rule reminds us that truly what is right and what is wrong is determined by what is right and wrong for our race. That's what we believe.
No one knows exactly how many hate groups there are in this country or how many members they have. But one thing is for sure, the recruitment goes on all the time, night and day. How? The PC on your desk has opened a new and wider audience for these groups. They can relay their message to just about anyone at any time.
As a recruiter, my job was to basically go down to the local Board of Education office every year and get the statistics for the school's density, minority populations inside the school.
During his 14-year tenure as a violent racist hammerskin, T.J. Lydon was as vicious, prejudiced, and hateful as any other skinhead.
Now, if the school at that time was 85% white the year before, and then I come there and the school's 75% white, you could nail that school with white power literature. They'd blame the white kids in the area for the white power literature on the school campus. The black, Latino, and Asian kids would attack the white kids, therefore causing the white kids to start fighting back. At that time, we'd go on the campus and protect the white kids. So they joined us either out of fear or because they thought we were righteous dudes.
Before renouncing his white supremacist past, Lydon was involved in planning and executing recruitment operations. Lydon is now a member of the Simon Wiesenthal Center Task Force Against Hate and has dedicated his life to the education of America's youth. Today, Lydon lives in hiding, having survived threats and attempts on his life by his ex-brotherhood. For the purveyors of hate looking to ensnare young and impressionable recruits, it's hard to underestimate the importance of the internet. They can reach a more upscale audience online than through their more traditional methods.
This is a constituency that's really never been reached before. You know, these are kids who would not be seen dead at a Klan rally, but who are drawn in both through racist rock and roll music and I think in some cases, more importantly, through the net. For these kind of middle and upper middle class kids, those are precisely the kids who have a computer in their bedroom, who may live in their parents' $200,000 to $300,000 house and have this nice computer in their bedroom, and while their parents are off cooking dinner or at work or doing whatever they're doing in their busy lives, the kids in the bedroom kind of exploring neo-Nazi sites and so on.
Oh, the internet is just crazy. I mean, there's 2,300 extremist sites on the internet right now. I mean, if you want to know how to download sarin nerve gas, go for it. You want to know how to make a silencer for your weapon, it's on the net. Anything you want to know about anything, it's on the net. White power sites, black, Latino, just exploding.
The World Wide Web also allows access to an even younger pre-teen audience. There are many websites offering seemingly innocent games and puzzles with hate and intolerance as their themes.
I think also the internet has helped this movement reach out to very young kids, kids in middle school or even younger. So there are sites on the internet right now that have, for instance, racist crossword puzzles, even racist coloring books. You sort of color in the swastika or the Celtic cross or whatever it might be.
The fact of the matter is that the majority of the parents don't know what the hell's going on in this country. It's just a fact. I mean, when a mom and dad work till 7, I mean, when I'm talking work, people think I'm off at work at 5. No, you're not off at work till you walk in that door at home. That's your commute time. You're still working, so to speak. So therefore, if you're not getting home till 7:30 at night, well, guess what?
In addition to attracting kids to racist groups, the internet is probably the single most effective tool in spreading their message of hate.
It is the one development which has broken the monopoly, control of the mass media, which prior to this decade existed. Because on the internet, I'm on an equal footing with Michael Eisner or Gerald Levin or Sumner Redstone. They may be able to afford more bells and whistles at their internet sites, but people can go to my internet site just as easily as they can go to one of these others.
We have always adopted any technology that serves our purpose best. We were into computers way before any of the right wing were, and we were into bulletin boards and so forth, and so when the internet opened up, we were into it real quick. And it's been the same boon as it's been to other organizations or other movements. No matter what you are, the internet's been great. And as soon as the economic reality is that we can afford it, we adopt every new technology. I mean, they come out with a better gun, we want a better gun.
The internet for the church is very important. Our website provides ample information backing up everything we say. We back up our views on race, we back up our views on Christianity, we back up our disagreement with the government. We provide a really uplifting message for white people through the internet, and I'm happy that we reach probably 500 at least people a day, and that's a conservative estimate. We eventually went 500 an hour, and maybe one day 500 a minute. Just a matter of time. It's catching on like wildfire.
There's the working class white kid. Look out.
Like the internet, racist music is reaching out to America's youth. Their music has become a tool to the skinhead, Aryan nations, and others of the hardline movements.
Probably the best recruitment tool out there is music. I mean, if you listen to a white power CD, it will just go, you'll go ballistic. I mean, you can just listen to a CD and kids like the music.
Most racist bands are explicit in calling for violent revolution, racial war, and mass executions. Resistance Records recording artist Max Resist, in their song Flight Jackets, predicts a grisly scene.
Resistance music to date has been sort of an under-the-counter thing. I want to bring it out from under the counter. I want to put it on display. I want resistance music to be the music of choice for young people who feel that there's something wrong with our society, who object to the things that have been happening to our society, to our schools, to our workplaces. And I think that we can reach millions of people with resistance music that we have not been able to reach through any other medium.
William Pierce's National Alliance recently purchased Resistance Records, which sells over 50,000 CDs per year. The Resistance Records catalog includes bands such as Brutal Attack, Code of Violence, Extreme Hatred, and No Remorse.
You get hardliners already in the movement who attend these concerts, but with them come their girlfriends and their acquaintances and friends, people who are really drawn into the scene via these concerts. They leave the concert, they may take a CD or two with them, and that's sort of the beginning of their entrance into the real neo-Nazi scene.
Other traditional methods of recruitment are books, magazines, newspapers, and flyers.
Well, we brag the fact that we're a seditionist, irreverent, revolutionary-type paper.
Tom Metzger speaks with pride about his organization, WAR, which publishes a monthly newspaper replete with racist articles, advertisements, and cartoons.
We only print radical articles. You won't find anything that's not radical or even advocating violence or whatever. We put it all in there, and of course, they've used those papers and articles against me in court trials and like that. Our cartoons are rough and bawdy, and people like it.
The World Church of the Creator publishes several holy texts written by their founder, Ben Klassen. But perhaps the most notorious book to be published by a white supremacist is William Pierce's The Turner Diaries. Written in 1978 under the pseudonym Andrew MacDonald, Pierce wrote of the violent overthrow of the federal government and the systematic killing of Jews and non-whites in what has become a manifesto for the white underground movement. In planning a retaliation for the disastrous outcome of a standoff between government agents and Branch Davidians in 1993 at Waco, Texas, Timothy McVeigh found more than inspiration in William Pierce's Turner Diaries.
Timothy McVeigh's motivation, I believe, was to send the government a message, to say, this kind of thing that you did in Waco will not be tolerated. If you continue to do that sort of thing, we will continue to strike back at you, we the American people. We don't like that. We don't approve of it. We're not going to put up with it.
The Turner Diaries were clearly and absolutely the blueprint for the Oklahoma City bombing. There were, a huge number of similarities in the way the bombings were carried out and the time they were carried out, the way the bomb was built, and so on. But the Turner Diaries also have been used essentially as blueprints or inspiration by a number of other people as well. Much less known and much less deadly than Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols. But nevertheless, it's a book that has inspired bloodshed.
It's a revolutionary act. In fact, a major revolutionary symbolic act that years in the future they're going to look back at a lot differently than they do now as this government becomes more and more centralized and dictatorial. I wish if it had knocked out 10 federal buildings, I'd have been even happier.
Watchdog organizations fear more attacks like Oklahoma City.
The fact is that since Oklahoma City in the last 5 years, there have been something like 26 or 27 major domestic terrorist conspiracies. These are conspiracies that have contemplated the bombing of, for instance, 3 different IRS buildings, a couple of federal buildings, the FBI fingerprint facility in West Virginia where 1,000 people work, a huge propane tank farm outside Fort Worth located right next to an elementary school.
While Pierce's first book inspired the Oklahoma bombing, another novel by Pierce was inspired by a real-life terrorist. Joseph Paul Franklin is on death row for his acts of hatred. He has admitted to executing 18 people, most of whom were minorities or interracial couples, between 1977 and 1980. Many more targets survived his murder attempts, including then Urban League President Vernon Jordan and Hustler publisher Larry Flynt. While Franklin was not affiliated with any hate groups, he has provided tremendous inspiration for them. William Pierce dedicated his second novel, Hunter, to Franklin, which models its hero after the real killer, depicting the executions of interracially mixed couples by an individual gunman or lone wolf.
Joseph Paul Franklin, I communicate with him. I think he was the original hunter that Dr. William Pierce wrote about in his book, Hunter. In fact, I like that much better than the Turner Diaries because it's more individual oriented, more working class type orientation. And he decided to do it. And he started his little war. And I guess he wiped out 20, 30 people.
Hunter's dedicated to Franklin, and it really presents this picture of going out and hunting down interracial couples, especially, and murdering them. You know, so I think that it too has been seen as kind of a seminal work.
Racially motivated attacks seem to be a constant presence in today's headlines. The recent gunfire assault of a Jewish daycare center in Los Angeles by Buford Furrow was a premeditated act of anti-Semitism. Furrow was a security guard for Aryan nations in northern Idaho. World Church of the Creator member Benjamin Smith went on a shooting spree across Illinois and Indiana in 1999, just months after he was named Creator of the Year by Matt Hale. Smith sought out victims of his church's hatred, Jews, Asians, blacks, and gunned them down from his moving car. 2 were killed and 9 others wounded. Rabbi Abraham Cooper is the Associate Dean of the Simon Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles.
I think the horrific events that took place over July 4th weekend in Illinois and Indiana, the shooter was 21 years old. He was a graduate of one of the finest public schools in the United States. And you say, well, you know, how can that happen? And the answer is, in part, when you bite into an ideology, a sense of belonging, it's a very slippery slope. You can end up going very quickly, very fast, very far.
In an interview taped months before his rampage and death, Smith talks about his struggle as a creator.
There's no doubt that this is a revolution, but we're trying to make it a revolution of values instead of like an armed revolution at this point. I mean, I thought about these issues before, but it was really until I got on the internet, read some literature from these groups, that it really all came together. Basically, I just said, well, you know, it's time I do something. I didn't really know anybody who was ready for action.
We're not saying he was a hero. We're not saying that he was right. We're saying that more than likely he lost his life, and others lost their lives, non-whites lost their lives, and people were wounded because the First Amendment was under attack. And that's why we called him a First Amendment martyr.
In recent years, there have been higher profile and more deadly hate crimes committed in the United States than ever before. Racially motivated shooting sprees have dominated the headlines throughout the nation. Illinois and Indiana, July 1999, where Ben Smith carried out his suicide mission. Los Angeles, August 1999, where children were shot at a Jewish daycare center. Pittsburgh, March 2000, where 3 white men were shot and killed. What's being done to stop these horrendous crimes and the organizations that inspire them? To date, police, sheriff, FBI, and other law enforcement agencies have been our first line of defense in stopping hate violence.
Many local law enforcement agencies, especially in the larger areas, have hate crimes units, or at least have done much better job educating their officers about hate crimes. At the federal level, we've worked very hard to increase the number of people in the FBI and ATF who are dedicated against those, not who think hateful thoughts, that's allowed, but who step over the line and begin accumulating all sorts of weapons, gunpowder, explosive devices illegally.
But law enforcement agencies could only be as effective as the laws they enforce. Federal and state hate crime laws are relatively new and varied. The Hate Crime Statistics Act became law in 1990, and requires the federal government to collect hate crimes statistics. In 1994, the Hate Crime Sentencing Prevention Act was passed. It provides sentencing enhancements of 3 or more offense levels for those convicted of a hate crime. 42 states have similar hate crime laws, and unlike the federal law, 21 states include sexual orientation in the list of protected categories. 8 states have no hate crime laws at all. For hate mongers like Tom Metzger, the laws may be having the opposite result.
And the hate laws, that's getting us more people than we ever got before. White guys are just so pissed off. They punch a black guy in the nose and suddenly they're doing 2 or 3 years in jail. How are they going to come out? Hey, they contact me right away. I didn't hate anybody till I got this shoved down my throat. Now I am a hater.
The latest bill before Congress is the Hate Crimes Prevention Act, introduced by Charles Schumer and Ted Kennedy. It would allow states with inadequate resources to take advantage of federal resources and personnel in investigating and prosecuting hate crimes. Opponents to the bill object to one of its other provisions.
The reason we've had trouble in the last 2 areas of hate crimes legislation is because the far right objects, and many in the House and Senate object, to including sexual orientation in the hate crimes law. I was able to pass the first 2 laws by going to conservatives and saying, you know, you may not be for equal rights on sexual orientation, but you cannot condone somebody beating up someone because of their sexual orientation.
Another approach, hitting hate groups in the pocketbook by suing and even bankrupting extremist groups using civil laws.
Did one or more of the Oregon defendants wrongfully cause the death of Mulugeta Sarah? The jury answered yes.
In a precedent-setting case in 1990, the Southern Poverty Law Center and the Anti-Defamation League took Tom Metzger to court for the wrongful death of an Ethiopian immigrant, Mulugeta Sarah. Attorneys were able to prove that the racist skinheads responsible for the murder were influenced and trained by Metzger and his organization. Metzger was ordered to pay $12.5 million to the victim's family. He lost all his assets and subsists on a heavily garnished income, yet Metzger is still around.
Television showed how they brought me to my knees, but I never stopped publishing my newspaper. I never stopped going on television. I never stopped doing. In fact, I do more now than I ever did.
But there's evidence that lawsuits work. In 1998, a powerful South Carolina chapter of the Ku Klux Klan was wiped out after losing a record-setting suit. The Christian Knights of the Ku Klux Klan was ordered to pay $21.5 million to a black Baptist congregation for burning down their church. Several other civil lawsuits are pending and may bring further victories in the fight against hate. Other efforts to stop hate are focusing on trying to prevent it from starting in the first place. The Simon Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles established the Museum of Tolerance, a hands-on experiential museum that focuses on the dynamics of racism and prejudice in America and the history of the Holocaust.
When you have access to 1,000 people coming through a day to your museum, you like to believe, not only among young people, but among adults, that you're making a difference.
The Southern Poverty Law Center has a unit devoted to education in an effort to try to stem the spread of hate.
They produce a semi-annual magazine and other materials, films actually, as well, that are sent to teachers around the country, to do precisely what it sounds like, to kind of teach tolerance, sort of multiculturalism, that sort of thing.
The biggest challenge to stopping hate is on the battlefield of the internet, with unrestricted posting of vile cartoons, racial slurs, and calls to arms on hate websites. Many people are calling for internet providers to police themselves.
We think that the internet community should just take a look at their parallel in the non-internet world for leadership. They don't want Washington coming down with more rules. They don't want laws to abrogate the fantastic economic engine that's been created here by way of the World Wide Web. Then what we suggest is show some good citizenship.
And that may have the hate mongers scared.
I'm very much worried about censorship coming to the internet. There are groups which are very active trying to censor the internet today, trying to bring about a situation where only politically correct information can be disseminated over the internet. These groups generally will deny that. They'll say, oh, we're all in favor of free speech. But in fact, they aren't. They are in favor of politically correct speech, in favor of speech of which they approve. But they certainly would like to get me off the internet and everyone who agrees with me off the internet. And they are working night and day to that, toward that end. They have a lot of money, they have a lot of influence, they have a lot of friends in the government, and I'm very concerned about this attack on the First Amendment.
Does the publishing of plans to produce a homemade bomb, like the one used in Oklahoma City, break a law? Should hate groups be able to encourage racial violence or the forcible takeover of the government without any legal repercussion?
I don't think you can legislate hate away, but the government can certainly be speaking out more strongly. Every one of our leaders should be speaking out more strongly about this.
The controversy over the internet and the First Amendment is a virtual powder keg. Hate websites number more than 1,500, according to watchdog organizations, and are available to more people worldwide than ever before. Preventing their use of the internet would devastate hate groups, but their banishment from the internet may indeed be the spark that ignites even more violence. Either way, the fight to end hate continues, and the ability to move peacefully into the future remains at risk.
The white supremacist who used to feel isolated, beaten down by the society around him, and kind of a loser, now feels that they're part of a movement, and it's a movement that's happening, that's moving forward every minute. You know, every day when they turn on that computer, there are more things there that make them feel the revolution's coming, the revolution's coming. And, you know, of course, the danger is that somebody, finally picks up the gun and runs out the front door to attack the enemy to begin the revolution.
We have to move away from saying that we will never be violent, move into the area where we say revolution is good by any means possible.
I see definitely this century as do or die for the white race. We're either going to win this century or we're going to be defeated. And certainly we intend to win this as soon as possible. We know our program is ambitious, there's no question about it. We know that we are going against the grain. But great change can happen suddenly in society. We saw the falling of the Berlin Wall, that was very sudden. We saw the breakup of the Soviet Union, that was sudden. And we believe that there can suddenly be a massive change in this country as well.
An Illinois minister is attempting to stop Matthew Hale and his group in their tracks. The Reverend Stephen Anderson, who is African American, was seriously wounded by Benjamin Smith during his shooting rampage last summer. Anderson has now filed a federal lawsuit against Hale, charging that Hale knew of Smith's plans and they were part of his group's desire to wage a holy war against ethnic groups. Hale has vehemently denied the charges. But even if Anderson's suit is successful, it will do little to disrupt America's hate network.